This is 025. Schrödinger's cat was a jam jar. Within the space of 24 hours, I sent a jam jar and a smattering of frozen yet rapidly dissolving upon impact raspberries into orbit. Both objects, still life studies, smattered on the white tiles of my Paris kitchen floor. Smattered. It is the right word for it. Isn't writing about finding the right words for calamity. Everything, dear reader, is calamity. You will come to learn this sooner or later. There is surely a dehumanization to good writing. To distill the individually experienced itness requires a certain crudeness, to borrow from the Spectre. Perhaps Leibowitz was right. Writers are themselves gods. Voyeurism and transcendence, though that is an act of lexophanicism, obfuscation, another smattering of sorts. At least onomatopoeia was involved. I'm doing it again in a less careless way. Ideas I will dip my brush in, don't fret. Perhaps I too am all limbs tangled and smattered on the white tiles of my Paris kitchen floor. Shards of glass are not much different from scraps of sinew. What is the difference between a human and a stone? It only takes one stone, chipped apart, two pieces from a whole, to form a glass sculpture. How long have you, dear reader, searched to be whole? The writer is the sculptor and the itness is reached through the sculpting. I find it fascinating how we can abandon I, and not in the sense of our nose transgressive I, kneel on the floor naked as another with an entire universe perception of their own wields a knife. That is the truly unreachable thing. To see the world through another's lens, cannot let go of self. The self is a sharp instrument I let hover over my head. Other people I attach myself to, stones I try to rub against. I ask you again, dear reader, what is the difference between a human and a stone? The knife is my motif now, and I don't even think this is some vulgar or perverted form of submission any longer. I say any longer as it once was the way I performed self-humiliation, different from humility, bowing one's head. The church girl within me is buried and knotted up in rope. Take that as you will, hunk of meat or other slave girl. We bury the living, the stones. She plunges through layers of soil, and sometimes she is permitted breaths which are not clogged up with mud. Her eyes are still cast with fog during these times. This is all maddening and deeply offensive. When the jar surpassed the activation angle for it to tip over the other edge of the bar which divides the kitchen from my living quarters, in my Parisian apartment, I let the laws of physics slot numbers into their neat equations. Looking at a solved equation activates the same part of the brain to which blood swarms when looking at Monet. I let it smash into 1,000 shards on the floor, blind to the impact. I let. The jar fell off the table. Counter to worldly religious theological ideas which have gained cult-like popularity over the history of the earth, as a writer I cling onto disaster over notions of peace and sanctity. This in the same way that Patti Smith or black coffee and brown toast bones in M-Train clings to fractures. The writer's sanctity is not words taking fruit on a page. No, that would make too much sense. The writer's sanctity is a jar of jam smashed on the floor. Schrödinger's cat was actually a cleaned-out, label-stripped glass jar of jam which once held 4 black biros on the bar which separates the kitchen from the living quarters in my Parisian apartment. The strips of glue took 2 tries to scrub off. The jar fell off the table. I smashed a jam jar. Is the practice of preserving rubble the inverse of human instinct? I am uncertain. One can look into too many mirrors until one tacks mirrors to their own skin. We have not been instinctive in the true sense since we were savages in the Garden of Eden. Eve was a savage before she ate any apples. Can we be sure it was a fruit with pips? It is all too bitter, too neat. The writer's sanctity is a jar of jam. The jar fell off the table. I lose the string. To boast about the public parks in Paris, unclothed, would be too on the nose to make good performance art. I would use the term flashy, but that would be a little too good of a pun. Good writing severs the heads from two people having sex near a window with a street view. Sorry to be vulgar, we are all skin. That's the problem. We experience people only as skin, even in sex. The reader wants you to peel back your skull. You, dear reader, are a pervert. And so I return. There is surely a dehumanization to good writing. The jam jar must tilt only slightly for the balance of the universe to slant and the spinning to overarch the controlled arm of the metronome. There is always a metronome, somewhere. I place mine on the floor in the center of my living quarters of my Parisian apartment. You cannot hide the metronome. Poe wrote about guilt well. To find an idea, I must become the jam jar just as it is about to tip. If we writers are to be gods, we must control time. I must refute ownership of this skin and let this body smash on the floor. And I must perform this sacred act out of sight. A trick of the eyes must feel smooth when you lick it. We all know the jar's state of matter. Glossy, shiny scraps all over the white tiles on the kitchen floor in the Parisian apartment. On the other side of the bar which divides it from the living quarters, gloss and glass are words stripped from the same vine. Milton liked a green motif. Gloss, glass, glass, gloss. This is not a secret hidden from you, dear reader. I cannot keep many secrets from you. You are a pervert, after all. You watch as I tear past the scalp and prise open my skull with a blunt instrument. You thought I was gonna say strip naked in front of the window. The knife is no longer my motif. Some shards may even project beyond the bar and cross the threshold of the seen and the unseen. But to get down from the bar stool and walk around to the scene of the crime is to ruin the magic of it. Theatres have curtains for a reason. And as for the shards of glass, well, they must become part of the furniture. As Dostoevsky wrote it in The Brothers Karamazov, we look for the lie to match the furniture we have already dragged in from the rubbish on the side of the roads and the streets in Paris, another man's trash. I'm paraphrasing. And to account for the thawing raspberries, well, expectant audience, I cannot comment much on these. Why there is an audience in my Paris apartment where the jar fell off the table, I also cannot tell you. I smashed a jar of jam, but I didn't call the police. I wrote in my diary that this is what sleep deprivation is doing to me, but I think regardless of how much time one has spent in their unconscious or subconscious human suits, inanimate objects are the true gods we worship. Lebowitz and I must disagree. The jam jar, which once held 4 biros on the top of the bar in my Parisian apartment, is hailed ruler over all, like the metronome, which is always there in the corner of one's visual field. Humans are a peculiar kind. We use them for preservation. The feelings contained within glass cylinders must be permitted to explode. This is the natural order which is born out of the unnatural order we decree. It is as though the jar was full of decayed petals from a game of she loves me not. Don't we all wish someone has played that game with us, walking home, tripping on the she loves me part, or the pavement, or both? Tripping is the start. The only good use of a bouquet of flowers is when they die, and it is a relief that death is our only certainty. This makes me sound heartbroken. Perhaps I am, perhaps you are. In any case, this affords writers to play God. I still don't know the answer. She may love me. I don't think this is something that needs utterance. Good writing, as Borges's philosophy carries, is about which words are chosen and necessary. The chaff does not belong on the page. This is the genius of words as the bridging medium between post-Babel humans. The alphabet is not all smoke and mirrors. I smashed a jam jar. I will clean it up later, after the police are gone, and the metronome has stopped ticking. Poe wrote about guilt well.